Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the Launchpad session part 2. Let's get another round of applause for our wonderful panelists.
Thank you, y'all.
So this morning, you heard everyone talk about their vision and how they came to reimagine opportunity in their communities. And now we're going to dig a little bit deeper and find out what it takes to make these visions a reality. So our panelists will be talking to you about what they needed to do to turn that vision into action. And this afternoon session will be moderated by Don Fraser, who will ask the panelists some questions, and then again we'll break into 3 breakout rooms. And you'll get a chance to interact with a different panelist this time. So we've rotated them, but you're all going to the exact same rooms that you went to this morning. And with that, we'll begin the Launchpad Part 2. Thank you.
Hi again, everybody. Hi. For those who weren't in the first session, my name is Affiong Bassi. I am a recording artist. I'm a producer. I'm a poet. I'm a songwriter. And I'm also a director of a leadership development institute in the area of education advocacy. Really happy to be here, so thank you so much for having me. So now we're talking about making our dreams a reality. And I was thinking, it seemed that in the first session, I was like, okay, I'm only going to talk about the vision part. But then you can't really talk about the vision part without talking about making the dream a reality. So now I'm like, oh my goodness, I feel like I said pretty much everything I wanted to say. So I had to think of, a kind of a fancy way to tell you about living out your dreams. So I thought about the 5 Fs. So I'm going to give you all the 5 Fs of fulfilling your dreams and liken it to some of the experiences that I've had. So the first F is actually one that I realized isn't a necessity. So lots of times people talk about how in order to fulfill your dreams, you can't be scared. You can't have any fear, right? Like if you have fear, then there's something wrong with you because you should be superhuman and there shouldn't be anything within you that has any anxiety about what is going to happen next. And so I am a firm believer in being confident and not succumbing to stress. But I am one that has learned that if you have fear, you do it anyway. You do things afraid because it's through pushing through fear and pushing through situations that are unknown that you can actually find your strength and that you can actually fulfill your calling and find your purpose. And if you're always trying to maintain comfort in every situation and there's never any aspect of you that's like, wait, I don't know, is this gonna work, is it not? Then that adrenaline rush, a lot of that is what causes some of the most beautiful pieces of my art, the most beautiful pieces of my work, and the most beautiful pieces of my service to come to pass. So that's like the first F, but it's a false F, because it's like you can have fear, but just don't let it debilitate you, right? So we have the fear. Then we have focus. Really, really important to maintain your focus. Once you have a sense of what it is that you want to accomplish, you have to be so focused on that goal that no matter what happens to the right of you or no matter what happens to the left of you, you won't be shaken. Because I believe that as we work to achieve our purpose, there are going to be those tests that come, those trials that come, and a lot of it is there to basically ask the question, are you really down? Are you really going to do this thing? Or are you going to punk out? Honestly. Because anyone that has gone through anything, who has done anything great, can tell you about all the things that occurred in their situations where they almost quit. So for instance, I've had a situation at a gig where 2 of my band members got into a fight, like at the gig. Like we were about to go on and they got into a fight at the gig. And it's one of those situations that occur because you have people that have different personalities and have different egos and all of that. But it's one of those situations where I could have said, you know what, this is crazy. Like, I can't believe you're fighting on my gig. Like, I'm leaving. And I almost did. And I actually did. But then I came back and I said, you know what, I'm here for a purpose. How would I feel within myself if I said, I was about to do this gig, right? But then 2 of my musicians, they had a disagreement. So then I decided that I wasn't going to do music anymore. In the moment, that seemed like the biggest thing ever. Like, I can't believe that this awful, awful thing is happening. But as I was able to step back and say, my focus is on something greater. We're going to deal with this situation as it is and resolve it, at least for the time being, so that we can finish this performance and then deal with it more fully a little bit later. So that leads to my next F, which is be flexible, right? So it's okay to be afraid. You have to maintain your focus, but it's also important because it's through this, 1 minute left, oh my goodness. Okay, it's through maintaining flexibility that you actually see the places where you're willing to be pushed and willing to bend, and the places where you're not willing to bend, but you can't be so rigid all the time that you are never open to the ideas of input of other people. And I'm going to be really quick with the last two. Finances. Any entrepreneur will tell you that the first few years of your entrepreneurial adventure, you're going to be investing a lot, and you might not see the fruit of that immediately at all. You'll be investing in people, investing in capital, operations, all of those things. And it's really important to know that that is part of the process, that financial sowing, and that at one point, hopefully, it's going to come back to you and it's all going to be worth it. But you're just putting energy out there and putting good vibes out there so that those things can come back to you. And the very last thing, have fun. This is your vision. This is the thing that you dreamt about as a child. So there should be an aspect of it that is feeding you and feeding your spirit as well. And as you continue to enjoy the things that you're doing, I believe that success will come your way. People will also be inspired to do the same. So, thank you. I think I went a little over. But thank you for listening.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Good. Are you sure you're doing good? I know it's been a long day. But I wanted to start and just say thank you. I haven't slept in 2 days, and the reason I haven't slept is I've been so excited to be in a room full of a bunch of brilliant people who are full of vision and want to fulfill purpose. Like, you don't get this opportunity that often. So I thank you for coming, sharing your energy with me and the other panelists and all this good stuff. Like, this is truly awesome. So I know this afternoon we're talking about how do we actually manifest this thing called vision, right? And I wanted to take a quick second to give you my definition of what I think vision is, and I talked about it this morning in the breakout panel. My belief is that vision and your purpose are like inextricably linked, meaning like the reason why you're breathing, the reason why you're living is connected to this thing we're called vision. And so vision doesn't necessarily have to be a business, and a business is not necessarily a vision. Like if you think about Martin Luther King Jr., he didn't have a business per se, he had a movement, right? But you couldn't argue that that wasn't part of his vision, that wasn't part of the purpose why he was living and why he was breathing, right? And so if you weren't here this morning, my vision is manifested into this new thing called STEAM America, where we combine STEM, science, technology, engineering and mathematics, and arts and an art-centric culture to develop the leaders of the future, to show them that they are inherently genius and there's a myriad of ways they can express that genius so they can create whatever reality they want. Afyang touched on something about vision, and she said you should have fun, right? Because you've been dreaming about this thing since you were a child, and I brought something that I'm gonna share with you guys, okay? From my childhood, actually. And the reason I brought this is called a Me magazine, okay? And you see I'm all over this thing, right?
That's
all right?
cool.
Okay? Now, I brought this for a reason. I literally did this in 4th or 5th grade, okay? And what I wanted to talk to you about, of the 8 no's that I mentioned this morning, the 8 no's, K-N-O-W-S, of vision manifestation, I figured, what are 2 of them that are essential in terms of manifesting the vision? One thing you really need to do is have the vision, have a picture in mind of what you want to be and where you want to go, to the degree that you've already been there in your mind. You felt it, you tasted it, you touched it, you've gotten the goosebumps that come from really experiencing this thing, right? When I was a kid, we had to do this assignment, and it's pretty much, what are you going to be when you grow up? Really basic, right? But what's interesting about this is this morning I said there was a disconnect for a long time personally in me, because I was like, I'm a businessman, right? But I love educating kids. That's not a business. Until I realized I'm in the business of empowering kids. And where I got that businessman thing from, hold on a second, y'all. Okay, right here. See me right there? I thought I looked fly. I had my little black shirt on, my little briefcase on, right? So why am I showing you this, right? Because I don't want to just take you down memory lane. The reason is, this was my first business plan, okay? This was my first opportunity to write down who I was going to be, what I was going to be, and how I was going to get there. And if you are going to be a visionary, if you're going to actually effectuate this change, you need to know the plan. You need to visualize it in 3D, experience it before it actually happens in the natural. And that's what this project like literally allowed for me to do. I literally walked in the shoes of these things I wanted to become. And as I matured, even in my childhood and in my adulthood, I always came back to this. Even when I didn't even know what this thing was. Like I came across and was like, oh my God, right? Because I'm in here and I'm a scholar on one page. I graduated from Harvard. On another page, I'm making music. I do STEM. Plus arts integration. A lot of what is in here is what is right here, right now, right? And so I'm not saying go home and do a Me magazine, right? But what I am saying is once you have a plan, you need to take action on that plan, but you can't really move unless you know what the move is going to be, right? And so in terms of manifesting vision, how did I manifest mine? Well, that's a long story, but in short, I knew what I wanted to do, right? I knew the problem that I wanted to solve. That was first and foremost. I knew myself, so I knew how that problem connected to me and how I wanted my children, or children I didn't even know, to have the access, right? To be able to re-envision how they fit into society. I knew that thing, right? But what I didn't know was exactly how it was going to manifest. And Alfiong said one thing that we really need, right? You need some heart, basically. Right? Because you're going to be scared, right? 3 weeks from now marks 1 year. 1 year since I left my job. I had a very comfortable job at the DC government, right? I was working for the state education agency. I had a good government job. So if you're from DC, you know what that means, right? Like I could have just kind of like put my feet up and for the next 20 years been good, right? But this vision, like once it like kind of crept inside, I couldn't let it go. And so I prayed and I prayed and I prayed on it. And when he said go, I moved. Why am I telling you that? I'm telling you that because if you decide to make that move, I'm not saying quit your job, right? I'm not saying do anything that drastic. But what I am saying, if once you decide to make that corresponding action to what you see, and we're talking about vision specifically, like the thing that you're here to do on this planet, you'll be provided for. That's right. There hasn't been one day in the last year I haven't eaten. There hasn't been one day or one time I haven't paid my mortgage, not once. And I didn't have the plan mapped out to that degree where I knew what was going to happen a year from now, but I knew it was going to happen 10 years from now because I saw it. And so if I can encourage you to do anything, start to write down your thoughts, your epiphanies, your aha moments, right? Start to take magazine and news clippings around. Those will be the fodder to build your plan. And then you'll know at some point when it's time to make that decisive action, right? And once you make that action and people around you see that action that you make, they'll start to buy into your vision. And then you'll build your tribe. And that'll help you create what it is. I know I'm over my time. I'll talk to you guys more about this in the workshop. I'm really looking forward to it. I really want to hear what you're doing. I really want to hear about your visions and what you aspire to do. And if there's any way I can help, I'd love to be in contribution. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Cassandra Campbell, co-founder of Fresh Food Generation. We are a farm-to-plate food truck that serves low-income neighborhoods healthy, affordable, cooked foods. So when I was asked to speak at this conference, I was really excited to talk about entrepreneurship and policy. One of my big role models when I was a kid was Huey Newton from the Black Panther Party. And he took the approach that he's not going to wait for the government to do anything, right? So there's, one part of his story, he's in California, a street light is broken. He says, hey, why don't we just get a bunch of guys to stand next to the street light and walk people across the street, stop traffic, let traffic go. And to me, that's what Fresh Food Generation is. We're not going to wait for the government to start providing healthy, affordable food in our neighborhood. We're going to take it into our own hands and devise a plan. So speaking of action, I wanted to tell you about our experience, bringing a vision and actually implementing it. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs romanticize what it means to start an organization or what the process is, but it's actually really hard. So we definitely had to do some soul searching, just like you guys. We sat down, we wrote our finances out. I decided that I was gonna leave my job in 6 months after I finished the project I was working on. And then we went into the researching and networking. So when we started, we actually didn't even know if it was going to work. It was this crazy idea that we were going to get really expensive food and sell it at an affordable price. So we did our research. We met with farmers. We weeded with them. We talked to them. We found out what's available in New England, how many pounds we could get, how the food was going to get to us. Were we going to be, taking a trip out to Western Mass every week to get local beef, or could they drop it off for us right in Roxbury? We met with city officials. We were starting a food truck, so we just thought that we could pull up on the side of a corner and serve food. Not in the city of Boston, right? You have to go through the Boston Redevelopment Authority and get approval from them. You have a GPS on the truck, so the city knows where you're at every moment. Some spots in the city are through a lottery process, so you're competing with other food truck owners for that same spot. I mean, we knew that food trucks didn't want to go into the neighborhoods that we were going, so we had that advantage, but we also know that when we're there and people see that we're successful, that other people can come in. So it was a constant process where we were going back to the drawing board and learning more about what we were getting ourselves into. So the next thing was team building and sort of skill development. I do not have a culinary background, neither does my business partner. But the first thing we did was we got jobs in kitchens after we quit our jobs downtown, and we cut carrots. And we did everything to learn how to become great chefs outside of our own personal kitchen, but to be able to produce food for large amounts of people. We also put together a team of talented people from the neighborhoods that we were actually serving. So we had great videographers who were able to help us share our vision. We had graffiti artists, we had DJs. We really wanted to make it more than just a food experience, but a cultural experience that we were welcoming people into. So it wasn't about a year later, which is crazy to me, that we actually got food. And that's, as a food business, you think that you would start off with food, but we were really sharing and selling a vision to begin with. And we started small. There are orchards in Roxbury, believe it or not. So we would go there and we would pick the apples and we would turn it into apple chutney. And people would be like, "What's that?" And they would try it and they would be like, "Oh, that's some really good applesauce." It's not applesauce, but I'm glad you like it. And they would get really excited at the fact that the apples were local. We've also been in the process of just producing our product and getting feedback from people. So it's, having a vision and actually actualizing it and making sure that vision is relevant means that you're constantly having a back and forth conversation with people. So I watch how people eat our food, what's left over. We've done several catering gigs. We actually did Black History Month, which was one of the hardest events that we ever did because it was at City Hall. I think we changed the menu about 3 times before we settled on something. And that was actually really helpful because we learned what people want to see and we learned how to hold our customers' hands and walk them through the process of trusting us to provide healthy food that people were going to enjoy. We had one item on our menu for breakfast called root crop hash. And I think some people who were approving the menu and the budget were just like, "They're serving us roots? Who are these people?" But it's really just plants and vegetables that grow in the ground. So potatoes, carrots, and people just weren't used to the term root crop hash. So that was something that we learned as a business. And so it's just this constant back and forth conversation of us making mistakes, of us learning, talking to our customers, listening to what people want to see to make sure that we're keeping that vision relevant.
I just want to say that you guys are absolutely amazing individuals for being able to take your vision, the things that you're truly working on, and to bring them to light. It's truly awe-inspiring. And one of the things that first came to mind when listening to you, to kind of piggyback off of Cassandria's point about being adaptable, right? Because at a certain point in any entrepreneur's journey or any vision journey, when you actually put things to action, things are possibly going to have to change because culture is changing, people are changing, technology. I mean, if you look at the technology that we have, like, I mean, everybody has like a high definition camera like in their back pockets these days. And so I want to know like what you possibly had to do to adapt, what needed to change when you actually had that business in place. Was it the people that you had to be around, or was it the business itself? Was it how you were serving the people? Could you tell us a little bit about how you had to change your actual business after it was actually launched, and what were the criteria for those changes?
Sure. So I'll start out. I am a consultant by training. Was in corporate strategy for 3 years. So my first foray into album production came with a schedule for everything that I wanted to have happen. And so I had a 3-month plan, because consulting projects are usually 3 months long. And I said, this week I'm going to come in, we're going to record this song, then the musicians are going to come in, then they're going to lay down their, instruments, and then, 3 months later we're going to have an album, because I'm a consultant, and obviously,
Of course.
I've been doing this for a while, so this is how it works. And so I remember coming to my first production session with my producer, and he looked at my schedule and he was like, okay, yeah, He didn't shoot me down because, that wouldn't have worked, because I was completely sure that everything would be done in 3 months. And it's funny because it's the whole pride thing, because I used to listen to people who said, it took me 2 years to do this album. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Come on, I've already written all these songs. It's going to take me 3 months. I'm going to show you. So 3 years after I said, yes. I just have to 3 years later, I had my album. And it's really amazing because, it's almost like having, so I don't know how many people are parents in here, and I don't have my own children that I've birthed physically, but it's almost like you have the opportunity to bring something to life and intentionally put different aspects of yourself into it, and have other people collaborate with you and intentionally put something into that. And if you rush a process like that, it's like you're rushing, you're cooking Thanksgiving turkey and you say that you're gonna zap it at 1,000 degrees for 30 minutes, You don't have time to have the things marinate together, to have all the juices flow, and to really have something that is of substance. So, for me, in terms of having a concept and something that made sense, like this is supposed to be this long and it's supposed to look like this and be like this, I was able to expand my mind and my horizons, be flexible, and also allow the end product of what I was doing to be influenced by many more people and to be even more of a reflection of who I was, because I grew as a person in the process.
Awesome.
That's what I'd say.
If anyone's ever taught, you pretty much know, like, you write a lesson plan and it's out the door in the first 10 minutes. You know what I mean? And so I would say most of everything has changed to a degree, because my business, I even thought when I was in the classroom, I'm here to serve you, whether you're a parent or you're a student, like I'm a servant. Right? So as I interact with more parents, more students, more principals, I always get like new perspectives on how we can implement our programming, how we can write better curricula, how we can do better professional development to help whoever it is we're trying to help. And so I think every day is just a learning process. I think to be a really good teacher, you have to be a really great learner first. And so I really look at this journey as a learning process every day, all the time. Like, I'm learning something every single day and tweaking the model ever so slightly, but I know what I want the kids to be at the result. So I'm always tweaking to get the end result. So it's always a learning process.
We didn't expect to be doing any catering when we originally started, but it turns out that there is a huge demand for it. People want healthy food at an affordable price, and not just in low-income neighborhoods, but in all neighborhoods. Everyone seems to connect around food and the difficulty of finding it. So that suddenly became a huge part of our business plan and helps us keep our rates affordable in the neighborhoods that need it the most.
Beautiful. The next question that I would have is once you actually had your business in place, right? One of the things that's been awesome about this conference today is the different topics that we've talked about, right? From everything from entrepreneurship, criminal justice, healthcare. There are so many different issues and so many different things to get involved with. But once you actually have your vision and you have your business in place, how do you get people engaged? I mean, because people are pulled in so many different directions. They could be doing healthcare, they could be doing like advocacy, they could be doing criminal justice. How do you build your tribe of people who are actually going to follow you after you've launched something and put it out into the universe?
So for me, it's all about authenticity. There's no better person to do you than you. And people are attracted to and drawn to authentic people. Even if they don't understand everything about what you're doing, the fact that someone is comfortable in their own skin, the fact that someone is humble, and the fact that someone realizes that they are here to serve in whatever way that they can, that's attractive to people. So for me, in my musical content, I try to be a servant in it. So the kinds of songs that I'll write, I have a song called Conclusion, for instance. It's an Afrobeat song, and it's about basically the ways in which we all jump to conclusions about things that we think we see and think we understand, but we can be totally wrong about it. And that's a social justice issue. If we think about, as Black people, the ways in which our bodies are politicized, and the ways in which people jump to conclusions about who we are. So I can take a song like that, which is a 4-minute and 24-second song, and say to someone, I come with this perspective and I speak on these types of issues, and why don't you listen to the song and then I can tell you what it's about. Or I have another one that's called Weatherman. You think about how the weatherman is often wrong about what the weather is because they're not the ones that control the weather. And so that's about surrendering to the fact that we're not all in control. And so for me, by touching on issues that I feel all people go through, issues that resonate with people, and also having a fusion of different types of sounds, of different cultures in my music, and remaining authentic, I feel like I'm able to reach many people. And it's a joy to be able to do that.
Good question. Just real quick. Any vision you attempt to manifest is bigger than you, so you're gonna need help. So your team and the people who surround you, your tribe, are like critically important. That's first and foremost, right? Two answers to that. One, there's a spiritual component. Habakkuk 2:2, it says, write the vision down and make it plain on tablets so that he who sees it may run. And so I interpret that as when you have your plan, like I was just talking about, when it's clear and plain, you can present it to someone and they can say, hey, I like what you're doing, right? Because the vision a lot of times is up in here, right? But if you can put it down somewhere where someone else can kind of like tangibly see it, then they can say, hey, you know what? I'm good at that right there. I can help you right there, right? Also, the power of having a plan is when you know where you're going, you kind of know the pieces you need to get there. It's like you kind of know the pieces you required to build a car. So if I know that I need this piece and I'm talking to someone, they're like, I'm really good at this. You fit that piece, right? So I can identify talents and giftings in other people where they fit, and they can do the same, like a vice versa type thing.
So when we were first starting out, there was a lot of back and forth on whether we should be a for-profit or we should be a nonprofit. And ultimately, we decided to be a for-profit. If we couldn't make money off of it, then we shouldn't be in business. So we really lead with our food. Not everybody is into eating healthy, but they'll taste our beef and they'll say that they've never had beef like that before in their lives because they're not used to eating stuff that's local. It tastes different, it feels different, it's better for your body, and you can feel it immediately. So we really rely on the taste of our food to, create support and people helping us.
Beautiful. And so one of the things that is really interesting about being here at the Kennedy School is students who are graduates from the Kennedy School or from Harvard or other Ivy League institutions, people might think that you have this opportunity because you have this degree, which is not necessarily true. You look at people like Oprah, who's done amazing things and come from impoverished backgrounds. So we see that you don't need a necessary degree to get to where you're going. A lot of the times, I'm not saying don't be educated, I'm not saying any of that, but I am saying that there are lots of different ways to getting to success. So as we finish up this panel, I'd like to know what would be the one strategy for success that people who are here, regardless if you're Ivy League educated, if you're not, if you're living on the streets, if wherever you are in this place and time, what is the one piece of advice that you could say, you can apply to your own vision in a way that will be manifested?
Okay. I would say what I've learned in terms of manifesting my vision, and one key thing that I would say is to walk with honor, always. That's really important. And for me, honor looks it's in many different facets and in many different ways. I'll just touch on a few of them. For me, honoring God as the one who gave me all of the gifts, and knowing that everything that I'm doing is to the glory of the one who created me and not to my own glory, because that helps me to get through the difficult times, because it's not always going to feel good what you're doing. Sometimes it's going to hurt. Sometimes people are going to disappoint you. Sometimes you'll even disappoint yourself and break the promises that you've made to yourself. But if you always walk with honor and know that what you're doing is bigger than you, then you can get back up and be refreshed. So honoring God and honoring yourself, your own body, your own temple, respecting yourself, being very mindful of those that are in your space. Only having people in your space that are going to bring positivity to what you are doing. Because again, I feel like as a vision bearer, you're not just living for you. You're living for the ones that are going to be touched by your vision, and your progeny, everyone that's coming after you. It's really, really important and really precious. And of course, honoring the people around you, the people that are sowing into your vision, the people that are attending your workshops, the people that are buying your food. All of these people are just an integral piece to what you're putting together. And without each of those pieces, recognizing that you would not be who you are. So honoring God, honoring self, honoring all those around you, I'd say that those are key themes that I've taken with me, and they've served me well and have caused me to feel successful, whether or not an event is sold out, whether or not I enjoy a particular task that I'm doing at work. It's just honor.
Actually, I think a lot of times educated people are at a disadvantage when it comes to manifesting vision, because a lot of times we lean on that little piece of paper to open doors, So what I'll say is perfection is the enemy of manifestation. Perfection is the enemy of excellence. So if I could give you one thing, it's like, once you get that idea and you know what you want to do, you could infinitely tweak it before you feel comfortable enough to just jump out there. But the one thing I could just say is just jump out there. Just do it. Right? The whole theme of this conference is, okay, we talk about policy, what are we going to do? Well, do it. I'm not saying that you have to start from zero and you're going to be at 100 right away, but if you have the picture, what's a little piece that you can do? What's a little piece of that you can step out and do, right? And then just build your own personal resume in terms of making your way to your vision. But to try to think that before you get into it, all conditions are going to be perfect, right? And you're going to be in this place where everything is in a line, and it's not going to happen. So if you're waiting for that perfect situation to happen to really effectuate this type of thing, it's never going to happen. So all I can say is, if I would say one thing, just do it. Get out there, stop talking about it, and do it. And people will be galvanized by the fact that you did maybe the thing that they've been wanting to do for so long. Oh my God, you're doing it. Okay, yeah, right?
Nice, thank you.
So definitely echo everything that you guys said, but I think treating people well. Every day I wake up, I think, how can I make my community better? And I was thinking about that way before Fresh Food Generation started. So when Fresh Food Generation started, we already had all this support in our community because people knew us. People knew that we were volunteers, that we showed up at events, that we said hello to people in elevators, basic things that people skip out on every day. We had built such a strong community before the Fresh Food Generation, the idea for Fresh Food Generation was even born.
Great. So one last point. I know that you had talked, Damon, a little bit about actually having to write. Like writing down is so important when it comes to actually like having that brain connect with what it is that you're really trying to put in vision into action, right? And I thought that that was a really interesting practical step that maybe a lot of people maybe haven't really thought about it in terms of the way it really manifests, the way it really works. Other practical, very tangible steps that you see, or any of you see, are necessary in the process of going from vision to action?
I guess I'll start. I would have to say that writing down maybe like the most important first step or along those lines, because that's really the first stage in like creating something, right? It's swirling around in your head, it's swirling around in your heart, it's in your spirit. But once you put that pen to paper, now it's something, it's tangible. Someone else can see it, they can feel it, they can touch it. That is the first real stage of actually creating something, whether it's a business plan with cash flow analysis and a value proposition and break-even analysis and all that stuff. Yeah, you can do that and you'll get there, but why don't you just pick up a pad and start journaling, right? Just start journaling your thoughts. Like I'm gonna stay on that writing piece because a lot of times as we're formulating the vision, that's really all you have, right? You may have a pad, you may have your iPad, you may have a laptop or something. Just write. Get it out of your head, because the more that's in your head, the less room there is for more ideas to come, more revelation to come. It's like you're running out of random access memory. So you gotta like do a data dump, right? Leave some room for something else, and that's how your vision grows.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for the panel. Let's get another round of applause. This was a really inspiring discussion, and one of Afyang's points was that you need to be flexible, and so I think I'm going to have to take her advice right now. We're running a little short on time, so instead of the breakout sessions, we're just going to continue the discussion here, and so please feel free to line up at the microphone over there. I'll also bring this microphone to this side, and feel free to continue asking the panelists questions, and don't be shy to share your own vision on the microphone as well. Thank you.
That would be great if you would share your own vision. That would be awesome.
Yeah, we'd love to hear some of your ideas, some of the things that you're trying to put into action.
Are we going to the rooms then? Oh, okay. Okay, got you. So we're not going to the rooms anymore? Oh. So I guess we're not going to the room. So can I ask y'all a question? All right, cool. So we're supposed to be leaving this place, going back to our neighborhoods, right, and making change. Has anyone been inspired by anything they've heard the last couple of days, or does anyone have an idea, like, what is your vision? Like, I promise you, I've been waiting to come and hear brilliant people share what they're gonna do to make change. Does anybody have a thought, an idea, an inkling, a beginning, something that they'd like to share? Anyone? Think about it, and please, please, please share. That's what this is about, a dialogue.
I wasn't going to answer your question because I had something else in my head.
Go ahead.
So I was just like, But one of the things that I've been doing some research on is, I have an entrepreneurial spirit. I've started a lot of businesses, and maybe one of them has been successful, and just one, but I get like $1 million a day. One of the things that I've been thinking about is, every time I go to these conferences or these talks, and I hear a bunch of white people, and they're like, well, microeconomics in the third world. It's like, okay, well, what do I do in Dorchester? How do I bring that kind of like bottom-up business model right here where I live in the community? Yeah, I'm from Haiti, but I can't afford to live in the house where I grew up anymore. So what do I do right here in Boston right now? And so that's one thing that I've been thinking about, and I'm really inspired by hearing all of you talk about the processes that you're going through, and how some of them are similar to the processes that I'm going through, and how some of them are not so similar, because it doesn't seem like you've pulled all your hair out yet. So, thinking, well, not you, but, the ladies are all full, So I just wanted to share that and bring that dialogue here. Like, when we start thinking about making an impact and making a difference, how we can bring it here in the community and still make a profit. And that's something that I've been willing through in my head. That I've been looking for more resources. And all the resources I found were always for like the international community, and this is what I'm struggling with.
When you trick or treat, or when a child trick or treats, right? How do they know what houses they're gonna get candy from? Lights on, right? If I were to ask you a question, I would ask, because you said you had like 1 million businesses a day. That's a lot, right? Which one are you focusing on developing the most? And the reason I asked you that is because like the clearer the picture is that you have of what you're going to develop, the easier it will be to identify those economic resources in your community. You see what I mean? Like with STEAM America, I know exactly what we're doing to a degree and where we're going, right? But I know what kind of funding we need, and I know what kind of organizations we like to partner with, and I know what kind of corporations, because I know what we are, I can research what they're about and see the connections, and then I know who to write a letter to or an email to or send a call to. So it kind of goes back to what Alfiong said this morning, what I said also, and Cassandra also, was like, the clearer you are about maybe just one of those things that you're doing, the easier it will be for you to effectuate that change right there in your neighborhood, because you'll begin to look at your surroundings differently. You'll be filtering through a different lens, and that lens is, how do I feed my baby? Because your vision is really your child. So like, just like a mom, when they go out, it's like, my baby is going to eat. Even if I don't, my child's going to eat, right? That's the kind of mentality you'll develop, and you'll start to see opportunities pop up, just like that. It's the law of attraction.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Jasmine. I'm an undergrad at Harvard College. And I think one of the things I've taken away from this policy conference the most is, like you said, that the conditions will never be perfect in order to branch out and just do what we need, what we want to do and what we need to do. And so last year I had the opportunity to mentor young African-American girls and bring them to Harvard's campus and to help them through the college process and really do a lot of mentoring and that kind of thing. And so when I went back home, I'm originally from Ohio, and when I went back home, I realized how helpful that would have been if I had had that same mentoring in high school. And I think that in my community, at least, mentoring in high school is not, there's not very much of it. And so I heard about this program, except it's only for African American males. And so I've had this vision of wanting to do some type of mentoring program for young African American women in my community. And I've always wanted to be a diplomat. Since 7th grade, I always thought I was like doing diplomacy, international relations, like that's it, I'm leaving Ohio and I'm not looking back. And so I always thought that maybe perhaps I would go back after being a diplomat, but realizing that maybe I do want to take some time off and really start something in my own community that can be sustainable and that can keep going, because I think that I would have benefited from it so much. And I came from what some people would call privilege. I came from, didn't come from inner city. And so I think even to have such a program in inner cities it would be phenomenal, at least in my community. So I've just really been inspired that the conditions will never be perfect. I don't know how my mom's gonna feel about it, but we'll see. We'll see when I go back home. But yeah, so this has been great, and I just wanted to thank you guys.
Can we clap for her?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's an awesome idea.
That's a great idea. And I think,
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm really glad, Jasmine, right, that you mentioned the idea of mentoring, because it's really, really important. As an entrepreneur, I think of relationships in sort of 3 dimensions or 3 different types. So I have the people that are mentoring me that might be older or might be further along in their journeys that I can look up to, who have kind of blazed the trail for me. I check in with them often to say, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? Not that I'm going to do exactly what they say, but at least I'll have, the wisdom of an elder. Then I think of of those who you'd say are, perhaps you're an elder to those people that are looking up to you, and that those kinds of relationships help to keep me on track, because I'm saying these are the people that I'm accountable to, that are younger than me, that might be looking up to me and might need, not a perfect role model, but someone who's striving towards something. And then you have those peer relationships, the people with whom you can share a little bit more than you share with the people up here or the people down here, right? The people that know you back and front, know your frailties, know your strengths, and can say, you said you're about this, make sure you're about that.
Right.
And make sure if you're about this, that you don't have too much of that in there, because it's going to distract you, or you're on the right track. So, I just wanted to commend you on what you are envisioning to do, and to encourage you in that, and know that it won't necessarily look exactly the way you think. It won't necessarily happen in exactly the time that you have in mind. It could, but again, be flexible and open to the ways in which you'll be able to serve people, and I think that you'll be very, very enriched, and so will your community.
I think that's such a key point. I just wanted to piggyback off that just really briefly, because I think that vision and following your heart is such a big part of this. Because I actually am a Kennedy School graduate myself, and I thought that I wanted to go directly into human rights and always do human rights, and so I hear your vision. But then something in me along the way was like, well, I really want to get out there and host and perform. And I didn't know how I was going to connect the dots, because I didn't see performers as being human rights activists. Nothing was matching up. But I just had to follow my heart. And so little by little, I started performing and getting out there and telling my stories. And before I knew it, I started telling stories about ways that people could advocate for change. It came full circle without me intentionally trying for it to. And so I think that even if you say I want to be a diplomat, but this is really my heart, go with your heart, because something is going to change. Things are going to change as your vision progresses, as time goes on, and little by little you'll see, when you get to this point, you'll be able to connect the dots backwards. But sometimes connecting the dots forwards it's not always going to add up, because you don't really know what you're doing or where your heart is, but just follow it, because it will end up in the right spot.
I would definitely recommend reading this book called The Alchemist to anyone who's becoming an entrepreneur. I don't know if you guys read it, but something I definitely go back to, and it sort of builds on what Damien was talking about. When you have a vision and you're working on executing it, the world just has this magical way of helping you out and making sure that your bills are paid. And not to say that it isn't a struggle, but things come together when you're working and following your heart.
Yep.
How about we go on this side over here?
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
First, let me start by saying I'm truly inspired by everyone in this audience. Since I've been here, I've just been thinking of all type of things I can try to implement on campus. So, thank you so much for that aspect. So, one of the things I just thought about within the last 2 hours is
Inspired.
Being a sophomore at Connecticut College at the moment. I have a distinct interest in criminal justice, and everything about criminology fascinates me. So at our school, I was thinking about implementing some type of curriculum where we can do mass incarceration studies, but instead of what we label as felons at this moment, which I have a problem with that label, and I totally have a problem with that label, but except for them being the area of study so much, how about we create some type of curriculum where students at Con, the school I go to, we can go have class with these inmates at the time, and we can have this cohesive learning environment, because we can learn from them and they can learn from us, because I think a lot of people that study criminology, I don't know, it's just like they treat them as if they're the area of study. And I think that it needs to be more engagement for us to truly understand the scholarship behind criminal justice. So that's one of my visions. I would like to have some type of curriculum that way, because Connecticut is very known for its large prison system. It's like prisons in every single radius around our school. So I think that'll be that's one of my visions I would like to implement, at least by senior year. Some just work with different faculty that work on this scholarship, and kind of get this cohesive learning environment. We can go to the prisons, and we can. A lot of the prisoners, they need English skills, so we can teach English, but at the same time we can learn about the criminal justice process. It's just, I don't know, it's a little bit more engaging, I think, on that end. So that's one of my visions I had, because I know a few other schools that do it, but I would like to expand on that, that concept and bring it to Con. So that was one of my short-term visions. So.
It's Shakina, correct?
Yeah, Shakina.
And you're a sophomore, so you have about 2 years or so.
Yeah.
If you would allow me to speak into your vision just a little bit.
Go for it.
I think it's a great idea to do remediation with folks who are already in the system, so that when they come out, they have a chance to be productive citizens. That's very important. You might want to consider both ends of the spectrum, so prevention as well as remediation. And so, if you look at the statistics, it's around about 4th grade, that reading level really determines to a large degree whether that child is going to end up incarcerated. And the prisons actually look at that same data to determine how many prisons they're going to build. And so if you really want to make a change on both levels, on both ends of the spectrum, my suggestion, right, because you have to be careful about speaking to people's vision, my suggestion will be to do both ends, right? Do the remediation piece on this end in the prisons, and then work on the prevention piece in terms of curricula and get the kids young, get them ramped up so that by the time they're in the 8th grade or 12th grade, they're not 6th grade levels behind and looking in the world like I have no shot. I need to go rob somebody to eat, right? So that could be one thing to add to your idea in terms of the curriculum.
I really like the idea of having a collaborative learning process, so it's not a group of university students studying a group of people in a removed situation. And ideas like that, universities tend to have a hard time to say yes to, because they start worrying about insurance and what professor are they going to get to go into it. But when you eventually get them there, that will be their selling point. They'll have it like on the front page of their cover. And a lot of people who will say no to you at first will be your biggest supporters in the end when your plan is working and thriving. And I think that, you should work on it. 2 years.
You got 2 years to pull it off.
You have to start it. You don't have to finish
That's true.
in 2 years.
The other thing about it is I think that being a visionary and being Black is a very interesting thing. I think, as Black people, we're used to being studied, and we know how that feels. So you can take that experience and apply it to a prison population, so you're able to see the world differently because of that.
Hey, be prepared for it to happen in 6 months or 5 years, because you just never know how how it might take off too.
And definitely speak to to the reasons why you're doing this, the reason why you actually care about incarceration, your own value system. That's something that I would probably encourage for everybody, is to know why it is that you're getting into the work that you're doing, and how to actually frame it so that that people are on board with your own vision as well. So on behalf of our panelists, I would like to thank you for your participation and for your vision. I think that it's absolutely amazing that we are all able to hear from your actionable steps. Please give our panel a beautiful round of applause.